In the quiet hills of Okanla, a small village surrounded by rocky paths and mango trees, lived a boy named Bako. Every day, Bako woke before the sun and led his goats up the hills to graze. He wore the same faded shirt, carried a stick made from an old guava branch, and never said much. People in the village barely noticed him, except when his goats strayed into someone's yam field. Bako had no parents. His mother died when he was a baby, and his father, a wandering hunter, never returned from the forest. An old aunt took him in but made it clear he was a burden. So Bako learned to rely on himself and the quiet comfort of his goats. Villagers often laughed at him. Children called him Bako the Barefoot, and the elders saw him as just another poor boy who would never amount to anything. He wasn't allowed near the village square, where men gathered to speak of business, land, and leadership. But what no one knew was that the Bako carried a secret, one that would one day change the fate of Okanla. Bako had a strange habit. When his goats grazed, he would sit on a flat rock with a stick and draw strange shapes in the dirt, circles, numbers, and patterns. He counted things others didn't notice: the number of yam ridges in a farm, the way shadows fell, depending on the time of day, even how long it took for one goat to chew a full leaf. At night, under the stars, Bako would lie on his back and solve puzzles in his head. He had found an old mathematics textbook in a pile of rubbish near the school. Though he had never attended class, he studied the book every day, slowly teaching himself to read, add, subtract, and later solve complex problems. His goats, silent and faithful, were his only audience. Years passed, and Bako grew taller. His goats multiplied. He remained quiet, but now his eyes shone with thought and quiet wisdom. Still, the villagers didn't notice. One year, things changed. A group of rich men from the city arrived in Okanla. They came in shiny cars and wore dark sunglasses. They were businessmen who claimed to represent a company that built roads and factories. They met with the village chief and elders in secret. A week later, it was announced that the village land, almost half of it, would be sold to the company to build a quarry. The villagers celebrated. The men promised jobs, roads, and wealth. Many didn't understand the contract, but they nodded anyway. The chief, proud of the deal, announced that Okanla would become a modern town. But Bako watched silently. Something didn't feel right. That night, he crept into the chief's compound and found the papers the businessmen had left behind. He read every line carefully, though it took hours. His heart pounded. He read it again, then again. The land wasn't being sold for development. It was being taken, almost for free. The quarry would destroy farmland, pollute the river, and leave the village with nothing but dust. Bako took a stick and started drawing in the sand again, calculating. He compared the cost of the land to market value. He measured the real distance from the proposed site to the river where villagers fetched water. He predicted how the quarry's waste would affect the soil. By dawn, he had proof, clear, undeniable facts. But who would listen to him? Still, Bako refused to stay silent. He took his drawings to the square during a village meeting. The elders frowned. The chief shouted at him. "What does a goat herder know about land and business?" they said. But Bako didn't back down. He asked them to give him just 5 minutes. With quiet confidence, he explained everything. He showed them his calculations in the dirt. He used sticks to represent buildings, lines for roads, and rocks for water sources. Slowly, the villagers gathered around. The facts spoke louder than his status. Even the most stubborn elders grew silent. By the end of his explanation, the truth was clear. The deal was a scam. The chief looked ashamed. The elders held an emergency meeting and called off the agreement. When the businessmen returned to finalize the contract, they were turned away. Furious, they drove off, leaving clouds of dust behind them. The village was saved. News of Bako's actions spread quickly. For the first time, people looked at him not as a goat herder, but as a wise young man. The village school invited him to teach younger children. Farmers came to him for help with measurements and pricing. The chief even offered to pay for Bako to attend a college in the nearby town. Bako refused to leave his goats completely, but he agreed to teach. He also began designing simple tools, rain collectors, crop measurement sticks, and goat feeders, all based on his calculations. Years later, Okanla had changed. There were still no shiny cars or tall buildings, but the farms were more productive, the children smarter, and the people wiser. At the center of it all was Bako, the boy they once ignored, now the man they all respected. Bako never stopped wearing simple clothes. He still herded his goats every morning, but now, when he sat on the rock and drew in the dirt, children gathered around, eager to learn. Never judge a person by their appearance or status. Bako was seen as poor and unimportant simply because he was a goat herder. But his intelligence and quiet wisdom saved the village from disaster. People often carry hidden gifts. Those gifts can flourish if given a chance. True intelligence doesn't always come from a classroom. Bako taught himself math from a thrown-away book. He used what he learned to make real-world decisions that helped his entire community. Knowledge is powerful. No matter where or how, it's gained. Even the quietest voices can hold the loudest truths. Though Bako had no formal authority, his calm courage and clarity of thought made people listen. Speaking up, even when no one expects it from you, can lead to change. Community matters more than profit. The villagers almost lost everything for false promises of wealth. But thanks to Bako, they learned to protect their land and each other. Greed can blind people, but wisdom brings lasting prosperity. Every job has dignity, and every person has value. Being a goat herder did not make Bako less valuable. In fact, it gave him the quiet time and discipline to learn and grow. No honest work is ever beneath anyone. Wisdom can wear humble clothes. Never look down on anyone, because the one you ignore today might be the one who saves you tomorrow.